A pod of orcas located off the coast of Japan were trapped in ice over the last few days, and there was a lot of concern. But now people think that they've escaped because they've disappeared. We're going to talk about it on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a pod of orcas that were found off the coast, the northeast coast of Hokkaido in Japan, where there was about a dozen or so orcas that were kind of just bobbing up and down in the ice, apparently trapped. They hadn't been able to move for about 6 hours. There was a researcher that was in the area that had drone footage, found the orcas, and saw that they were in trouble, called the authorities in Japan, and obviously a lot of experts were called and people were looking into this. The footage went viral, not only online but on TV networks, and people were concerned. They were generally concerned. And so I wanted to kind of cover this just to kind of give you an idea of what's happened and why some orcas and some whales do get stuck in the ice, because I think it's important that we talk about it. It's a great time to talk about it. I just want to let people know that the person who let me know about this story was Eddie Bedingfeld. He actually sent me a DM on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean to say, hey, Andrew, do you know what's happening? This is awful. What can we do about this? And it just so happens by the time I looked at the story, or I looked at the DM, I looked it up, and the next morning it was like, hey, it looks like they've been rescued. So, or they're not there anymore. So it looks like they're safely away. Now, this happens every once in a while where we do see pods of orcas that are found stuck in ice, or whales that are found stuck in ice, that they just can't get out. And what's happened is, they get caught. They're hunting underneath the ice. They're in the Arctic. These are just specific pods that go to the Arctic, and they go underneath the ice. They start hunting, and they're looking around, and then they pop up to breathe in these little holes or little areas where they can go up and breathe. And then every once in a while, they just kind of get stuck because the ice kind of freezes around them, or it's so packed that maybe they've gone a little too far, and the pod follows the matriarchy that goes in, especially within orca pods, and then they get stuck and they can't get out. It's too far to get out without breaths. And orcas especially are known to really come in and out of the water to breathe. They breathe quite frequently. They don't just dive down for 20 minutes like, say, gray whales or bowhead whales. They actually go up and down quite quickly when they need a breath. So that is typical of orcas. So the fact that they get caught every once in a while is not surprising, just because of the ice. The video obviously is concerning. The orcas are very close together. These are massive animals, right? They're very close together, and they looked like they are in distress. There's no doubt about it. It was gut-wrenching to watch. Some reports say that some of the orcas had blood on their jaws, and people think that it's because they were trying to get out in other places, trying to breathe, and trying to find holes where they can breathe and try and break the ice. So that is that is common, I guess. I don't know much about orcas getting caught in this, but they're not there anymore, and they are believed to have escaped. And when you have a situation like this, a lot of people come together. Petitions are signed, authorities are contacted. I know the Japanese authorities were contacted, and people asked them to bring an icebreaker, because that sometimes is what happens. They'll bring an icebreaker in, try and break up the ice close by so that these orcas and whales can get out and breathe as they get out, so they can swim safely away. I've seen orcas get caught in inlets quite a bit. Not quite a bit, every once in a while. There was a recent story where these orcas were caught within this inlet, and they just couldn't get out. It wasn't because of ice. It was just these two orcas went in, 2 or 3 orcas went in. I think they were brother and sister. Young orcas went in. They just couldn't find their way out, just the way the inlet was situated, in the geography of the inlet. And so they had to, have these boats follow them. Sometimes there's been reports where they have like these whale calls, these orca calls in the water to try and lead them out. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's not easy. These are massive animals. It's not as if you can just pull them out of the water and go out. That's really, really stressful. So they're already in a stressful situation. You want to make sure, you hope that they can get out on their own. Now, I want to kind of refer back to another story, because like the one thing that is good about these stories is it brings people together. And there was actually a movie. As I was reading the story, I'm like, there was a movie on this. And apparently the movie Big Miracle, I don't remember seeing the movie. It was made in 2012. It was directed by Ken Kwapis. It stars Drew Barrymore and John Krasinski, and it was based on Tom Rose's 1989 book, Freeing the Whales, which covers Operation Breakthrough, the 1988 international effort to rescue gray whales trapped in ice near Point Barrow, Alaska. So Pacific Ocean, very same ocean. And so essentially the plot is in a small town in Alaska in 1988. Adam Carlson, a news reporter, recruits his ex-girlfriend Rachel, a Greenpeace volunteer, on a campaign to save a family of gray whales trapped by rapidly forming ice in the Arctic Circle. Adam names the adult whales Fred and Wilma, and the infant Bam Bam. And then so it just kind of drawn into collaborative rescue work of our several normally hostile factions. So Inupiat, whale hunters, a Greenpeace environmental activist, an oil executive, ambitious news reporters, the National Guard, the American president, and politicians on the state, national, and international levels. Also joining on the effort are two entrepreneurs from Minnesota who provide de-icing machines to help keep the hole open. And I remember a bit of this movie. It was like small holes, and so the holes kept covering up, so they had to de-ice them so that these whales can kind of keep coming through the holes, or else they'll just drown. And that's what we were worried about in this situation. So, and then eventually a Soviet icebreaker ship arrives to remove the last barrier before the whales die. Apparently it came down to the nail. It was a nail biter. The ship's first attempt leaves only a dent. The ice finally is broken, and the adult whales escape. Spoiler alert. The infant whale dies from injuries, unfortunately. So obviously this happened. This was something that was big. It brought people together from a variety of backgrounds that are normally, some are environmentally more friendly than others. But it just, whales do this. Orcas do this. We love massive iconic species, and we love to protect these massive iconic species. And movies like Big Miracle, Free Willy, and then also this drone footage in real time, in real life, people are coming together and they want to help as much as possible because they don't want to see these whales suffer. In the pod, there were apparently 3 or 4 calves, but it was difficult to tell. Like I said, they were packed in pretty tightly. And so, they want to make sure that they could get out. But so, very concerning when you have an entire pod. Orcas are not plentiful, let's just say, in abundance. There are a lot of pods that are endangered. Some are doing better than others. But it's become scary when we see orcas, especially a large pod of 12 or 13, get trapped all at once, right? They follow each other. They're close together. This is an apex predator. It's important to the ocean, and to see these animals get stuck is just gut-wrenching. To see that they potentially escaped is even better. Now, I am bringing you this. I only discovered today that they escaped. It was going to be more of a sadder story because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very happy that they potentially escaped. Don't know how they did it. Some people say they just found holes. They just found a path where there were a bunch of holes. If you look at the video, there are definitely some sea ice floats that are around. So thicker ice, like larger ice that you would see, say, a seal like that would hang out on, or a polar bear that would hang out on. That's a little thicker. But then there was all this ice broken up around it. And so I have a feeling they just found that right path and they finally got out, which was really important. So, that's basically the story. I wanted to bring it to you because it did have a bit of good news. I'll definitely confirm on the next episode to find out. I do have an episode coming up on orcas. I'm going to try and confirm that they did get away, and hopefully they're being monitored, just for their health and to make sure that this pod doesn't get stuck in the ice again on their way out. So that's the episode for today. A quick episode. I wanted to kind of of just touch base with you on this story, and we'll give you more developments as I see it. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. If you want to reach out to me, just like Eddie did, you can do so at How to Protect the Ocean. DM me on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. And you can also contact me, speakupforblue.com/contact. That's speakupforblue.com/contact. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.